Hello and welcome to Why Medics Matter, a podcast for doctors by doctors. I'm Dr. Amy Burbridge.
And I'm Dr. Simon Fraser.
Today, Simon, we are going to introduce and have a chat and reflect on the new NHS England 10-point plan to improve resident doctors' working lives. And I know that this will be very welcomed by huge numbers of people out there. This has stemmed from many years as what is perceived as being unacceptable working practices. I was a resident doctor for, I think, nearly 13 years because I did a very sort of convoluted training path, and I experienced not being paid on time. I experienced having to do mandatory training every 6 months. I was moved from different trusts. Some trusts were 90 miles away from my home and I was having long commutes. And over time, more resident doctors are starting to say, this is just not acceptable anymore. What can the NHS do to help us have a working environment that is conducive to being a good doctor, but also our well-being?
Absolutely. And I think it's about recognising that we need to see doctors as professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And they're adults, you know what I mean? And there are expectations that if I'm an adult going into the workplace, there are certain things I'm entitled to and stuff. And it's interesting, obviously, that this is a drive to push it through from the review. We know there's a lot of dissatisfaction amongst doctors. There's been strikes, talks about strikes. I think if we just fixed the pay, we wouldn't necessarily improve everything. I think it's deeper. Okay. And I don't know if you've heard of Herzberg's hygiene theory or two-factor theory.
Do you know, I sad to say I haven't, which shows my ignorance. So no.
It's a really important concept, which is the factors that lead to dissatisfaction are not the same as the factors that lead to satisfaction. It's a bit of a mouthful, that. So what does that mean? Okay. So there are really important factors that we need, basic factors like pay, rotas, support. Yeah. And if we don't have them, we are very dissatisfied. Yeah. Very unhappy. Okay. If you have them in place, that doesn't mean you're satisfied and motivated. It means it takes you to neutral. Yeah. So you have these core factors, which are really important baselines. And then we get our job satisfaction and motivation from other things like autonomy, feeling valued, and meaning purpose. And this is a real genuine attempt of NHS England to put something out there, a set of standards, which we've talked about for years. I remember being a resident, a PRHO.
Pre-registration health officer.
That's how old I am. Okay, I'm older than you, Amy.
Not much.
And I remember the BMA coming around inspecting our hospital to see if we had access to food, and it's done. So it's full circle, and it is NHS England's attempt to hold hospitals. And it's interesting. It's come out from the chief executive, and it's gone to trust, and it's gone to the people. You know, the director of people and those departments to say, guys, we need to pull a finger out here and the set standards. So, Amy, I know you've probably had a look at them because you've got a quality lead role, and this is something that people come talk to you about.
Yeah.
Let's go through them.
Absolutely.
What are they?
So the first one, which is very general, is that trusts need to improve the working environment and to basically help improve the well-being of doctors. Now, this is certainly something that we focus on when we do quality intervention visits at trusts, and that we look at. And this is things like, do you have access to food 24 hours a day? Do you have a locker to put your valuables in? Do you have a car park space? Now, I know this sounds crazy, but one of the things that people say to me at every visit is car parking. Because if you go to work and you've got nowhere to park your car, if the only way of getting to work is a car, you've already got huge amounts of stress before you've even got into work. So sometimes it's the little things that can make a big change to resident doctors.
There's also a safety issue there. If I work in shift systems and I'm leaving the trust at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and I've got to go down a mile down the road to some abandoned car, there are real safety issues.
Yeah, 100%. And, I've raised this a while ago, somewhere previously, and they said, you can get one of the security guards then to walk you to your car. And I was like,
It doesn't happen,
no,
absolutely.
And and so that's a part of it. And also what I really like in this point is we give resident doctors self-directed learning time now, which is really important. And often trusts say to them, but you have to be on site. But that's taken their autonomy away. And
it's not treated like an adult. And we don't give we don't even actually give any space to do it productively.
Where can you do it anyway? Because often we're hot desking. I sometimes share my desk with, I don't know, however many people. It's very loud, very noisy. So we really need to treat resident doctors as adults, which they are, instead of babying them.
Did you ever have a doctor's mess, Amy?
Do you know, I qualified in 2005 and I worked at the Royal Shrewsbury Hospital and I lived on site for free. And for the first year, they provided free accommodation, which was wonderful. And then we had a phenomenal doctor's mess. And that's sort of gone. And that's a real shame. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that it was amazing back 20 years ago, but I think we've lost the community of being a trainee doctor.
And I think there was a lot of money a few years ago where people were reinvited. So there are some trusts that have rebuilt messes.
Absolutely. And I think,
but I think there was a lot of places that had money but no space and never happened. And it's about those soft spaces when we do so much online and how you create that informal support and community, which is known as a really important thing in terms of well-being. Okay.
What I really like about these 10 points as well is that each trust only has 12 weeks to assess where they are and to start to make improvements. So there's a time frame on this.
There's a time frame for assess, and the challenge will be then where's the resources and accountability to hold people to actually deliver. So it doesn't just become another measuring exercise. One of the things I think really struck me, and I think when we think about people who are trying to manage families or complex challenges, is and it's been in the contract for ages from the last agreement, which is about rota and scheduling.
Rotas. Yeah, I mean, sometimes people get their rotas 1 or 2 days before, 1 or 2 weeks before. And one of the key things in this 10-point plan is that the rotas must be there no later than 6 weeks. So people have time to plan lives. And actually, they are saying that the work schedule, so your generic work schedule, which says where you're working, where your educational opportunities are, should be at least 8 weeks, ideally 12. Yeah. So this is setting a really high standard that should be adopted by all trusts.
And the only cynical bit in me is this has been over a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It was been there in the requirement and the rotas. And if you're trying to plan your life, it's really hard. I know, again, you can see why you see dissatisfaction. And that's linked to annual leave reform. If you don't need rota, you plan to get married, you're sort of begging people to swap around so you can, it's a real, and we sort of expect people just to suck it up. You should be grateful to come and work here. And it's simple things. It's complex to do.
Very complex.
But it's not undoable.
No. And I mean, when I remember, I'm going back to qualifying, we had allocated annual leave. So we were told when we were taking our leave.
Well, that was the thing for many years. It was fixed in the rota.
It was fixed leave in the rota.
Chose your slot. Yeah. And then we moved to a different thing for flexibility. And the reality is we need somewhere in the middle. But we need a clear system that protects it. Absolutely. So we welcome the reforms looking at rotas.
Yeah, and leave.
Transparency and annual leave. One of the key things is about board level leadership.
Absolutely.
To have a same senior named person, but also have resident representation. I've done a lot of coaching with DMEs, okay, and I've worked with one recently who's her biggest angst and why her trainees are really unhappy is being the all these issues. It's interesting. So she's been trying to tackle these issues before it's come to, and what I've noticed with different DMEs is the level of engagement and interest. I was really fortunate in my trust that I had a very proactive, supportive, and I had an open door, regularly met with the medical director, and he took those issues forwards. I've worked with the DMEs where it's like, training's over there, it's not interested. What do you think this board level leadership will do?
I mean, firstly, and I've been to quite a few hospitals, I am astonished that this doesn't exist already. And I know it doesn't. So I think this is so important and so needed. I think it's really important to have that resident doctor on the board as well. So I know they mentioned about a senior leader and a resident doctor, but it's that resident doctor who is the voice for the doctors within the hospital to take it to board. Because sometimes at board level, they may not be on the shop floor, they may not have an awareness of what's going on. And it's by having a resident doctor and a senior leader who has oversight saying, these are the problems, and actually showing them, maybe walking them around to the areas and saying, this is the problem. This is unacceptable. I'm very pro visible leadership. I want to see these senior leaders walking around the departments, going to ED, going onto the surgical wards, chatting to resident doctors and saying, what are the problems? What are the issues?
I used to have one of the first CEOs I worked with, when I was tackling issues around one of my specialties. He actually did a nurse healthcare assistant shift every so often.
Wow.
And he said to me, Simon, I get it. But when I was on the ward, I was chatting to them, and this is the perspective I got. So that has to be that connection across.
Absolutely.
And particularly when we've got different generations to understand each other better. And there's so much we can keep talking about because we've only got about halfway through the plan. And I think the bits that I think really resonate is about payroll accuracy. It's just a no-brainer. Why do I keep repeating mandatory training? I was involved in a regional passport 10 years ago. And every trust signed up to it and we could repeat it. But that sort of momentum's been lost. And obviously paying for courses. You pay for a course and it's year time. It's a lot of money.
Hundreds and hundreds of pounds it can be. Yeah.
So do you welcome these, Amy? What's your gut reaction? Is it cynicism or is it's good?
I mean, I always welcome change that helps support resident doctors. I'm incredibly passionate about ensuring resident doctors have fairness, equity, autonomy. And actually, we can go back to the ABC of Michael West, autonomy, feel like they belong, and working in an environment that's compassionate and also shows competency. All of these have been in place to a certain extent, actually. When you look at the GMC released the ABC Care for Doctors Caring for Patients, this was in there. This was released a few years ago. So yes, I'm very welcome this, but we shouldn't have needed it. And I think that just shows how far behind we are at really valuing and looking after our resident doctors. So yes, it's brilliant. Now it needs to be enacted. We need action.
We need action.
Absolutely.
So if you're an educator out there, it's interesting, I suppose, for you educators, the word is, it's not in my gift, which is interesting. But I would say is, as an education leader, you're an advocate. You're an advocate for these standards, and your role is to influence the organization to achieve these as high as it can and put them on equal priorities and things. Because if you don't, you're not going to recruit the best people to come back.
And some of the things as an educator within my department, I know I can do. I can help the well-being of doctors. I can introduce well-being sessions, mindfulness at lunch. There are different things I can do. I can speak to the rota coordinators to try and help annual leave. I can recognize when my doctors aren't feeling well, talk to them, speak to their supervisors, and really help look after and nurture them. So, yeah, we can't do all 10 of these, but we can have an impact. And sometimes small changes can lead to big changes.
I think ultimately we need to advocate.
Yeah,
because
so
I think
important.
it's good. Yes, as nice as well-being and stuff are, we got to get the basic infrastructure and requirements right, which really frustrates people. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
absolutely.
you. That's been a nice summary. Take-home messages are the factors that lead to dissatisfaction. You've got to address them to get to neutral, and we've got to keep valuing developing trainees, giving them autonomy.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Simon. I encourage everybody to have a read of this 10-point plan, because it's so important to moving forward and helping our resident doctors out there. Please rate, review, subscribe to our podcast, and we love to hear from you. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.